Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Eric here, designer of Empowered, and this is issue 3 or video 3 in the tutorial series of how to play Empowered. And today we're talking about Superpower cards. Okay, so in this video we're going over all of the cards and tokens in the game. Starting with cards, we have Superpowers, basic and styled items, plot twist and backstory cards, locations and crisis events, and of course your origin story cards. Now on the other side we have tokens, starting with the plot twist and backstory token, and that actually coincides with the cards. We have traits, we have HP markers and additional HP, we have objects, sewers, and of course the first player marker. Now we're going to go over all of this in detail one by one so that it's very, very clear, and we're going to start with the cards first, and we're going to start with Superpower cards. Now there are 4 basic types of Superpower cards in this game. We have Fighting Style, Combat, Movement, and Genetic. Let's take a look at the first one on the list, which is your Fighting Style. Fighting Style cards look something like this. They represent your character's basic skill and how they interact with the world. It's very similar to picking a class in a traditional RPG. They come with a unique item deck that's exclusive to you, and it's represented by a gray hand. You use your black Fighting Style die for picking up objects, fighting pawns, battling in PvP, and against the endgame boss. Let's take a closer look at one. So here's the martial arts card. As you can see in the top corner here, we have the type and icon. Below we have the main power and effect, which is always in the middle. Over here we have the gray PvP only ability, which is at the bottom of every card. And then we have over here its name and its flavor text. Now that that's done, let's go on to the next one, which is your combat superpower. There's a little bit more to these cards, so let's take a closer look. Here's your combat superpower. This is your character's main ability that they use to take on the heavy tasks. It's represented by a red thunderbolt. Now you use your red combat die for battles, investigations, battling in PvP, and against the endgame boss. Let's take a closer look. Here we have clay shape. So here's the type and the icon. Then we have the offensive and defensive abilities in the middle. Next up over here, we have the gray PvP only ability, which you can see more clearly now because this card is differently colored. And of course, near the top as before, we have your name and the flavor text. Now, not all cards have offensive and defensive abilities. Some are different. They might just have a power, which is represented by something that looks like this. Here's cryokinesis. As you can see, it just says power. Now, this is either something that has to be activated under certain stipulations, or it's something that is passive. Other than that, the cards are pretty much identical. Let's move on to the next. So next up is the movement superpower. It looks something like this. This is how your character moves faster and more efficiently around the city. It acts as an upgrade to your basic movement, and it's represented by a green arrow. You use the green movement die for passing through sewers and tunnels, chasing or escaping enemies, and battling in PvP and against the endgame boss. So let's take a closer look at an example. Here we have super speed. So just like before, we have the type and the icon. Next up, we have power and effects. Now, on the right side of where it says power, it will always tell you if your basic movement has been adjusted. Typically underneath that is where there's going to be an added effect, a bonus effect, or a different type of movement altogether. Moving further down, we have your gray PvP power, which we will jump into in a little more detail later. And of course, name and flavor text. If we take a closer look at the PvP power, you'll notice it says roll green, and then there's a bracket of numbers underneath with the following power. This is what is known as an escape power. This is something that a player can use to avoid PvP altogether. If another player is too high of a level, or if you just don't feel like fighting, you can use this to get out of there. Now, if we look at a different example of a movement card, this one doesn't have an escape power at all. It has more of a traditional combat power. So there is 2 different types of movement superpower cards. And last but certainly not least, and my personal favorite when it comes to the superpowers, we have the genetic superpower. So it looks like this, and it's your character's internal DNA-based power. It affects the flow or the technical aspects of the game, and it's represented by a blue helix. You use your blue genetic die for activating special abilities, battling in PvP, and against the endgame boss. Let's take a look at a closer example so you can see how that they work. So here we have Healing Factor. Again, with the type and the icon, we have the name and the flavor text. And then over in the main box, we have the card's actual powers and abilities. Now to the right of that, it will always tell you what kind of effect the card has, and then to roll your blue genetic die. Once you've earned a genetic superpower, this is actually a free action that you can take at any point in your turn, or maybe even an opponent's turn, depending on what it is. The number that you roll on the die is going to match which effect you are allowed to use on your genetic superpower card. Now, the one caveat there is if you happen to roll a blue poof on the genetic power die, you get to simply choose which power you want to use. These ones come in really handy for messing with the flow of the game, but they also come really in handy in the end game. There you have it. Those are superpower cards. Now, in terms of how to actually use those cards and when, you're going to see those in future videos in any subject that pertains to those cards. So next up is episode 4 or issued 4, and that's going to be about mini cards and tokens. So make sure you check into that one.